Hey everyone, welcome to the moon forecast video for the new moon. We have it in Libra with that solar eclipse. It's coming up on October 14th and it's happening at 10:54 a.m. if you're in Pacific Standard Time, or 1:54 p.m. if you're in the Eastern time zone. So go ahead and shift it around for, wherever you live. I'm Kendall with the Bohemian Tarot Girl and Wild Reawakening, and my co-host Amy. Amy, give a shout out for yourself.
I'm an intuitive energy coach and moon circle leader with Wild Reawakening. And here we are, another moon coming in. And this is a big important one.
This really is. And it's
Yeah.
in Libra, so I'm a little bit maybe not anxious, but like I'm interested in seeing how it pans out in my actual life.
Being a
For
Libra.
me personally.
Yes. And because we're having this solar eclipse, it's like the north and south node are involved. The south node is in Libra, so that's about kind of what you're leaving behind and the themes that we're kind of transitioning through. And then we have this energy of the moon, of course, and the sun that's highlighting it and hitting these points. And so there's a lot of like cycles that are closing and beginning and shifting, and it can be really important for like your own evolution at this time to really pay attention to what's showing up for you. And if you want to get like a little bit of a clearer picture on that, you can look at your own chart and find out what degree this is happening at in your chart and what house that lands in. So this is happening at 21 degrees of Libra, both the sun and the moon.
Yep. If you're a cardinal sign, pay extra attention to that. What is that? Aries, Capricorn, Libra. What one did I skip? Cancer. Cancer. Thank you. So, this is the second one in this Aries Libra axis, right? So we had the one that started in April, it was April 20th of 2003. And now we have this one that's coming up right here. And this goes all the way until March of 2025. So this cycle on this nodal axis. Do you want to tell people a little bit more about how it affects the nodes?
Yeah, so the nodes are like this karmic points, and we go through it's a 1.5 year cycle typically, and that is where the eclipses will fall during that time. And what it is, it's like, eclipses are portals, and so they're opening up kind of like this opportunity for really significant and deep transformation in a certain part of your life and a certain energy. And so right now our nodes, we have north node in Aries and south node in Libra, and south node is typically what you're leaving behind and north node is what you're moving towards. Aries energy is very fiery, it's independent, it's action oriented, it's paying attention to the self, whereas Libra is more weighing all options and your ability to be in partnership and collaboration. And I have this aspect in if you've listened to us talk before, you've probably heard this, but I have this aspect in my own personal chart with Libra being my north node and Aries being my south node. And typically when astrologers, when they look at this, the very generalized atmosphere or statements that are around this is that you need to move towards working in partnership instead of looking at yourself independently. And as I've grown and come to, learn some things about myself and how I am, it's not that I need to be more in partnership and like less focused on myself. It's more how to merge the two so that I can be an independent person and without losing myself in partnership. And so now we're looking at this, like, how can you exist as an individual and be authentic with yourself while also collaborating and creating and merging with other people. And so I think that's going to be a big theme of this moon, is that you're going to recognize and see so many things that pop up where you may notice that how you have been operating is not only not in alignment, but it's not serving you. And it might be eye-opening to see maybe where you have been limiting yourself or, having these old programmings or woundings or things come up that are ready to be cleared out so that you can enter into more aligned partnerships.
Yeah. I think in general, that is what we're moving towards as we move into this more Aquarius energy. There's this, the self energy, and I do think it's important, and there's a value for it, right? Like we have to check in with ourselves. We have to make sure that whatever we're going to do or act in our own lives, can really be connected to what we need. But there's also, we want to consider others in our life. We want to consider the collective and the people that we live with and work with, and make sure that we're not running our values or what we want to do, just, running them flat to the ground. So I think that's in general, like when we think about the energy that's coming up in this world as we're transitioning into this more Aquarius energy, it's really merging those two. And so I like that this is really a kickoff for that, especially with all this Libra energy and the relationships. I mean, I feel like that when we're looking at the energy of this new moon is really key to what is driving this need to connect and really make sure that the relationships in our lives are valuable and that we have the right people in our lives and we are connecting with those people at a certain level. So, and in general, you look at like friendships, you can have different friend levels, and that's okay. And I think we need to realize that you can have people that you connect with at certain levels and be able to keep those relationships. It's not like we're telling you to get rid of and weed out everyone in your life that you don't necessarily see eye to eye, but you have to be able to connect with people at certain levels and know maybe where those boundaries are in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, we talk about moon cycles and the patterns and the cycles that we go through. And we haven't had this nodal axis in 9 years. And at that time, it was kind of opposite because it was North Node in Libra, South Node in Aries. And so if you look back at like 2014 to 2015, there might have been really key things or decisions or partnerships that you entered into that you may find are shifting, or maybe are not in alignment, or maybe you're seeing how they were entered into based on a version of yourself that you were then, and now you have evolved and you're able to see them in a different light and recognize where the shift has happened and what is in alignment and a direction that you want to move into. So much of, I bring this up every time, sorry to repeat myself, but so much of this year has been about breaking and moving through cycles and old patterning and releasing, as well as kind of creating at the same time. And new moon energy, we usually look at as being a time where we're really like looking at a direction that we want to move in and focusing on setting intentions and creating shift forward. But once again, this is another moon where now that we have this eclipse, we're also looking at what cycles are we breaking, what patterns are we recognizing that we need to eliminate, what feels right for us and what no longer feels right for us, and having the ability to let that go. And it's going to be super pivotal because what we start putting into place now is really going to affect the next, cycle and
Yeah.
I mean, there's some really huge things.
This year is very important. And I think we're seeing that influx of energy that's telling us this is kind of like that jumping off point, right? That's that kicking off point for some new cycles that are approaching if you look out further in the years. And so I think this is a key point, really. And I do think you think about doing that evaluation of yourself, of your relationships, and making sure that, you're not putting forth an energy that you don't want to bring yourself into. one of the things that just happened recently on October 10th was Pluto went direct. And we've had a bunch of planets in succession being in this retrograde energy. So there's a lot of re-evaluating and looking back and trying to get you to connect and understand to things that maybe need to come forward and change in your life. And with this Pluto coming now stationing direct, and it's stationing direct in Capricorn. And Pluto is one of those outside planets. And so it takes a long time for it to switch. And it's right in this process where it's going to be changing into that Aquarius sign. And right now it's been going back and forth between Pluto or Capricorn, which we've been in for quite a while. And that is very you think about it in a financial way, right? You think about its connection to our world and it being very materialistic. You know, lots of corporations were formed during this time. And now we're moving into this Aquarius energy. And it's a totally different, Aquarius is more collective. There's that air essence of it. And so it's bringing in a totally different feel into this world. And when I think about Pluto's energy, it does connect to us on the day-to-day level. It connects to our really our shift and new beginnings, but it has this effect on the collective world that we have a tendency to see in reality more. And so during this time, I think that's what you're going to see is you're going to see this energy of maybe the outside world being a little bit destructive. Things are changing. Things can be a little bit scary. Things are shifting. And it's really asking us during this time to focus in on ourselves and not focus in and make sure that we're projecting that fear energy, that we're really calling in the energy that we want for ourselves. And so this is what this new moon reminds me of, is it's really asking us to step back and say, you know, there's going to be a lot going on in our world. And that affects us in certain ways. And it's always good to pay attention to that. But we want to make sure that we're not living in maybe some of those more negative energies. It's important to make sure that we're thinking about the things that we want to bring in and really change within our lives and making sure that we're not doing it with negative emotions, fear. We want to really manifest and bring in the things that we want and the changes we want without that fear.
Yeah. And that Pluto sitting at 27 degrees Capricorn is like in almost direct square with both the nodes, the north and the south node. And a square is a tense energy. And so what is really doing is like it's this karmic cycle that is happening. And so there's a lot of things shifting on a karmic and larger scale level. And you know, those things that are like really karmic, they're not necessarily like in our control. They're not something that we can really affect. It's a natural thing and it's a process. And we always know that sometimes there's going to be like a certain level of destruction and chaos before there can be a rebuilding. And right now, I think that there's just this huge shift happening. You know, as you said, it's going into Aquarius. And Pluto's a generational planet. It has a cycle of like 14 to 20 something, 21 years, I believe. And so it's not something that's going to change initially, but we're moving into a more Aquarian aspect of collaboration and humanity. And before we can do that, there are some things that are not in alignment with that energy anymore that may be coming or falling apart. Globally and personally, but usually Pluto is more of like a global aspect. It's kind of like death and rebirth combined. So yeah, like Kendall said, just don't get too caught up in the outside drama of things, because we've talked about this before. There's a lot of things that happen in the world on a daily basis. Your focus really needs to be on what is happening in your internal world, because that is the only aspect of your life that you have any, you know, chance of changing or experiencing fully. So
and really when we think of the moon energy, that if you're following the cycles of the moon, that's really what it's all about. It's all about your self-development. We obviously bring in other aspects to look at because I like to see the whole picture. I think everybody else does. We like to see what potentially could affect our lives. But the essence of that energy of following the moon cycle is your own self-development. I think so that if you just kind of make sure that you keep that at the back of your mind, that it's all about your personal growth and your personal changes that you need to make, and not dwelling on the negative stuff that's going on outside of your control, that will allow you to bring in the stuff that you really want in your life. We have a tendency to get overwhelmed. I do that all the time with my mom. I'm like, she gets overwhelmed and I'm like, you need to turn off the news. Let's just turn off the news. And then she feels better.
On a personal level, if we get back to the personal planets and what's happening, I mean, we have the sun and the moon in Libra. We have Mercury in Libra. Mercury is the messenger. It's all about communication and information. And so this is a time, I mean, we're highlighting relationships. This is also a time where you might receive some really key communications that affect your relationships, or information that you may not have had previously that influence a direction that you want to move in partnership. There's like, sorry, I just lost my note.
You're good. I can hear the banging behind you. So
I'm sorry. There's construction going on behind my house. Trying to tune it out. But there could be some really key pieces of information that come in for you right now that could really change the trajectory of how you move in relationship to other people. And it doesn't necessarily have to be romantic, although it very well could be. It could also be in work, or it could be a friendship, or it could be some sort of collaboration. So they're like, this Mercury is conjunct this eclipse. So pay attention to the information that you're receiving. It could be super significant right now.
when I looked at this, I feel like the Venus energy is just so strong for me. We had, and even though it's not necessarily specifically taking like, like there's not a prominent aspect to it, we did have it just transition into Virgo on the 8th. And Virgo is very meticulous and very, they're planning and building. And I feel like it's come in right, this energy, this Virgo energy, right before this new moon, to really help us get those practical steps. And Venus in Libra, that's the ruling planet. And so we have this energy of really being able to get our relationships going and started in a process that we really want to build on. And I feel like that should be a key point if you're setting intentions during this time. And it has this connection with Black Moon Lilith. And so we have, the Venus in Virgo is at 5 degrees during this new moon. And then we have Black Moon Lilith is at 1 degree of Virgo. So we have all this energy. So if you're really looking to build or weed out people or make a plan on the sort of people that you want to bring into your life, this energy is perfect for it. I feel like if there is ever a chance in your life right now, to really build and think about the people that you want to bring in, and the group and the soul tribe that you want to have in, as we kind of come into this new energy for the Aquarius timetable, this is a great moment to do it. And relationship is so big because we have this eclipse energy with that Libra energy, and it's really like an extra jolt to that fresh start, the setting of the intentions that eclipse energy is really bringing in.
Yeah, Venus in Virgo is very interesting to me because Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So it's actually, even though it's an earth sign, it's also very mental. And Libra and all of this energy in Libra, and Libra is an air sign, which is already naturally very mental. And so there can be a lot of thinking and considering and getting stuck in your head about things. And even though Virgo in Venus wants like perfection and a plan, and having this, things come together in like perfect alignment. There is a tendency also with, I feel like, Venus and Virgo to almost get so caught up in the mental part of it that they don't take the risks and they don't consider that things, it's almost like self-deprecating in a way.
Yeah. I think that's, yeah,
Thinking of
if
all the
you
ways
want
things
to
could go
avoid that.
wrong instead of all the ways things could go right. So it was interesting when I was looking at this, I was like, okay, well, this doesn't look so great for love, because you're looking at like, okay, well, what if it doesn't work out? And what if this, it doesn't make sense? And what if this isn't practical? But then we also get this boost because Mars has continued moving forward, and we know like Mars and Venus, that's like the masculine and the feminine counterparts, and we really need both of them in partnership. And it just moved into Scorpio, and it's making like a really it's sextiling Venus. Mars and Venus are in sextile with each other, and Scorpio is a very passionate, emotional sign, and so it's kind of bringing this balance to this Venus and Virgo, and it's being like bringing an alignment of like a kind of a head and a heart aspect, and like creating this opportunity of like, yes, maybe this doesn't make sense right now, and maybe it's not the most practical thing, but maybe it's worth it, and maybe it's worth it, and maybe it's worth putting your heart on the line for something that could potentially work out. So
That's where I'm going with it.
If you're feeling like you're really stuck in your head and you're evaluating the pros and cons of relationships, like bring that energy more heart focused during this time, and have some trust that sometimes your brain does not have your best interest in mind, and sometimes you have to take risks in order to get what you really want. You'll find all the reasons why it won't work. It doesn't mean that that's how it's going to go.
Yep. I mean, there's always the need to take action. You can think about things for forever. And I think that that energy does remind you that there is a level of need of thought in what you want to do, but there's also that need of action that you need with that energy. So
and I feel like the action may come later.
Yeah.
Like now, like, because there's not I mean, this chart is so like air heavy, which is not the best for action. But right now, with the energy that we have, so much of it is just getting clear on what you want for yourself and what feels in alignment for yourself, and whether or not your partnerships and relationships are matching that, and maybe looking at your relationships and partnerships that are coming in and just being so authentic in who you are, and looking at maybe where your old patternings have held you back, and being capable of releasing that and moving in a different direction, or acting in a way that maybe is different from how you've always always acted. That it's like that's the key, I think, is just paying attention to what feels in alignment for you.
Yep. I would have to say, when I was really thinking about this moon, though, that was something that came up and I wrote it down, was if people have an opportunity during this new moon and they're maybe called to go do an activity or get together with a group, even if it's not something necessarily in your wheelhouse that you would normally do, I would definitely take that opportunity. It might not be something, like Amy said, that might bring something right in this moment, but it might give you an opportunity to build something in the future. So if there's something that comes up for you and is calling to you to go do something, I would definitely go do it. This is the time of, Libra. They love the relationships. They love being with friends and family. So just make sure that you're taking those opportunities and you aren't just sitting in that headspace. So any other ones? Do you feel like you want to?
There was, so this Mercury and Libra and the notes, they're also opposing Chiron. And we've, yeah.
Yes.
Chiron always comes up.
That's a good one.
And so with the communication aspect and with these nodes, there can be possible triggers that come up in regards to communication, and maybe feelings of like your self-worth, and so it's just another aspect that's kind of like sticking itself in there, to pay attention to whether you're following old programming or whether you're working on healing that programming that you've had that is based on things that don't work for you anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well,
that's happening.
There is, and I think you have to look and grab these pieces out that make the most sense for you. Other people are going to be in different spots in their life and different spots in their healing. And I feel like you think about this Chiron aspect. If you're someone who is trying to heal themselves in this moment and trying to end a cycle because it's not serving you any longer, and it is probably tied to, there's probably a relationship aspect of it. Chiron is really asking you and telling you at this moment that do not go out and try to, reset your relationships. Your first duty here is to really heal yourself. And what does that look like, right? Like, you're not going to go out and find new people to date or, try to do mixers. That's not your moment. Your moment is to heal yourself during this time. And so you have to look at where you are. If you're on that place where you feel like you've done the healing, you've done the work, and you're ready to align yourself with a new group, this is a great chance for you to go out and find people and to start thinking about who are the types of people that you want to bring into your lives. So people are going to be in different spaces for this time. And when we look at what the aspects are and what's going on with the planets, I think that's a huge emphasis here, is that there's all these different pieces, and some people are going to lean more towards one side and the others are going to lean towards the other. So
yeah, I think just a good rule of thumb in general, but especially for this moon, is, are you acting out of fear? Or are you acting out of love? You can't do both at the same time. It's impossible. So pay attention to when things are coming up for you, like your response, and is it based on things going wrong or is it based on things going right? And we all have our stuff. We all have our we all have our woundings. We all have our experiences that cause us to act in a certain way. But you also are the only one who has the ability to shift that in a different direction.
Yeah.
So
that's really good. I think that is a great message to end with. Just a reminder, with the eclipse that's coming up, it is going through part of the US. If you want to step outside and watch it, just make sure you have your glasses on. Don't be staring directly at it. It will be a very memorable experience for you. So you take that moment as it's happening, no matter where you are in the world, and really, give thanks and think about all the positive changes that you've made in your life as you move forward. So we will see you next time for the full moon. Bye, everyone. 1 minute, sorry.